Welcome back everyone, this is part 2.1 to our complete series guide from basics to advanced in full driving on beach and sand conditions. It's 2.1 because we had to break it up because this is a lot of content that's really important that we need to cover. Even this video is 18 minutes, so I apologize for the length, but there's a lot to cover in there, and we split it up into a second section where we're going into some other stuff in more detail. If you missed part 1 where we looked at tire pressures and full drive mode selection, there'll be a link in the description. You can go back and have a look at that video. We do elaborate more on that, so if you want to know some of the basics, jump back and have a look at that. Some of the subject headings you're seeing coming up on the screen, this is what we're going to be covering over the next part 2 series, and then also content coming forward in relation to the series in total. At this point, I also encourage you, if you like what you see, if you like our channel, please hit the subscribe button. It helps us grow and helps us continue to create this content, bring these educational videos, reviews of four driving equipment or four driving products, as well as our trips that we do away, where we visit various places of Western Australia, so you can see what that sort of stuff looks like. Now, I also want to mention, I might disappear off the screen when I'm talking throughout this video, just so that I don't interfere with some of the content that's on the screen. So if I disappear for a section of time, that's why, but I'll continue obviously talking, or I'll reduce the visibility of myself. I also want to say a big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We had a recent one jump on board. If you'd like to know more about Patreon, there'll be a link in the description below. There's a lot of benefits to it, as well as the fact is that you're helping us continue to create these videos, but getting straight into the core of our video for today. So we're looking at driving on the beach. Some of the basics, what ruts are, what we call ruts.
I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing.
I didn't have to delete it. I do think it's very important. Beware high tide. Now, the importance of the reason why I've included some of these pictures is this is the really important bit. We need to be skilled and knowledgeable about driving on the beach and in sand conditions, so we don't end up in scenarios like this. So we're educating so we can avoid mistakes and avoid damaging your vehicle or doing things where something like that happens that you saw up on the screen. So that's why some of this is important. Here's a few things that's probably not a fantastic idea. Yeah, it is bad. You don't really want to drive through salt water if you don't have to. So there's salt at the beach, and rust can happen. So try and protect your car the best way you can, because you can't avoid that mist and salt water anyway when you're around that area. It's just part of the process. So there are products that help, and I will actually be doing some reviews on the salt for the 4-wheel drive detail products, which I got a hold of and have been trying out, but that'll be in a different one. So getting straight stuck into today's core video. This is from Preston Beach. Now, this top section here that the arrow is pointing at is what we would generally refer to as the ruts, or the main rut that most people will travel on. We travel in this because it's firmed up by the vehicle in front, which is myself. The vehicle behind's filming. So you can see he's sitting in the tracks that I'm creating. So it firms and compacts the sand. So that's why we drive in those sections. Now, they can become rutted and bumpy because people may not deflate their tires, and sometimes then you move out of those tracks down further like this where we are now. The vehicle behind is actually sitting in my track and is getting a nice smooth run as a result of that. So sometimes you jump in and out of those sections for those reasons, but up the top's always firmer. If you can tolerate the bumps, or if there's no bumps, go in there if you're not confident going further down, because there's usually a soft section between that and where you see the arrow pointing here. You can see a lot of coloration of the sand that's changed. That's from high tide. Now, generally high tide firms up sand on the beach, so sometimes being able to have that knowledge that sand is generally firmer helps you out of certain situations. Now, again, that was up in the top line. My vehicle you saw came down, and now the trailing vehicle is behind. and he's sitting in my line. To the left there, you see again the coloration of the sand is much different. That's high tide, and you can tell these tracks that are right in front of us, they don't sink in that far because it's usually firmer. That section of the beach is generally nice and firm. So wherever possible, travel in someone else's tracks because it's generally more compact, and you know that somebody else has made it through that area and maintain that nice momentum and nice speed as you continue on. Don't flog it down the beach, but just enough to maintain the momentum and keep it going forward. Now this is from White Hills Beach, again different from the last one, as every beach is different. Now the first arrow was different, but this one refers, you can see here, the main track, which is right at the top. This has got a shorter beachfront, so not a lot of room to move within. So you have to be a little bit more careful about what you're doing when you're turning around and where you come off, because the difference between that line and the tide can be rather small. The arrow just pointing there before was pointing towards the section which is firmed up from the high tide where all that seaweed was. Now, as I mentioned, that'll be generally firmer. It isn't always the case. For example, in Lansing, I know there's certain spots where makes it a little bit softer and you can sink in. So it's not always the case, but more often than not, it is firmer. And the softest section is the portion that's between the main rut line and then down slightly towards where the beach actually firms up a lot of that sand. As the tide comes in, as you can see, we're all parked up in that section where it's kind of firm, so that when we move off, we can instantly gain traction. There was a circle that popped up before. I forgot to make notice. That was mainly in reference to the fact that that's a nice area where you can come off the main line, use that top section, go down with gravity into the firmer stuff that's created by the high tide, build up speed and get back up into the main rut line through the softer section. This arrow, the blue arrow that pointed up, is focusing on the main rut line. The other one, you can see the car that's travelling up the top is in the main rut line outside of the beach. This one's running on, that was a bit too quick, but this one here is this is my vehicle at Willabinga Beach. You can tell at the moment I'm sitting up the top in that main line, but you can also tell on the tracks on this beach, you can tell they don't sink in that far, so you know this beach right across to that rock is quite firm, so you can generally use most of that section. So tracks of other people give you a good indication as to how soft certain parts of sand is, and when you choose your turnaround point like I have done here, I use part of the rocky surface or harder surface to do the turn, because you can see how much sand or how much I dig in the process of turning around. And because the beach is usually on an angle, you want to make sure you got the right momentum to do your turn, but also get back up to where you need to be. So that involves momentum, which needs to be built up. So you can see I was traveling in the section where the high tide would have firmed that sand up, and I used that to get momentum to get off this beach through a sandy section that was a bit soft. As I said, every beach is different. We look at a lot of scenarios throughout this series, so that hopefully as we do it, you guys get to see more and more to understand the variations between the different beaches and what to do in different ones. Now, here's some interesting scenarios. Now, this is actually deliberate. I was trying to do this on purpose. Well, it's designed. I was trying to test out some homemade tracks, and this will often happen where you get stuck like that. don't do this where you continue to turn your wheels because you're burying your car. So when I realised I couldn't make it up that hill at that speed, I reversed down and used gravity to help me down from that area. So if you end up finding yourself having that issue, that's the best move, is to use gravity advantage. Here we have, that's not me driving, but we're coming, I think that was me driving. That's coming off. So we've reversed back from where I got stuck from originally, reversed back down, gained enough momentum as you saw. I've gone through the soft section and got up onto the top, and I've got a bit of power to make that happen. Now here are a couple of scenarios. This is from Tim Stickett. Now this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about, is soft hard and soft surfaces. So up the top, that's the main line. Now you can see down the bottom here, this person has turned off the main rut line, which is firmed up. There's the soft section I'm talking about, that's generally in most of the beaches, and then just below that is where the high tide will come up and firm up that sand. So he's gone down. I don't know why he went down in this particular example, but he's gone down and then he's trying to work his way upwards. I know, yes, very bad. You don't want to be in this situation. Now he's trying to force himself up with all of how he's going, which isn't very good because of the fact that you're dealing with gravity, which is not helping yourself out. So you can see here, they've been trying to actually recover this car for quite some time. You can see how much he buried this car in. You can see he's bottomed it out. So this is generally the case of, and look at those deep holes from spinning the wheels. This comes from that action of just pushing deep in, and you just bury your car. So if you find that, like this picture shows you, if you find this is the case, that's a bad position to be in. So if you find you're losing traction, it's best not to continue trying to power through it. It's to stop and assess. I would have recommended in this scenario just to use momentum when he was back further and just drive and reverse straight back down towards the beach area. That's a really bad snatch strapping example. It's really horrid. It got him out of it, but he even ended up on a weird angle up the top. And also he didn't deflate his tyres, which wouldn't have helped his cause, but you can see how deep he had sunk into that. Now this vision was actually taken later on in the evening when there were a couple of cars that were actually going through that same section and who actually got stuck in that same section. Did different scenario, which I'll cover in a sec. This is a similar situation. Now this person here has tried to do this big turn to get out, and he hasn't let down his tyres. I didn't, at this point he's gotten out and he was smart enough to get out and then deflate his tyres further, and then he drove straight out, which is what you'd want to see. But hopefully beforehand you would have done that already. But if you haven't, he did it right. At least he did the first step, which was stop, get out, deflate, then try. And sometimes using low range in those situations is the best case. Here we have a deliberate thing where you've stopped in a section. I've told my wife directly just to suddenly stop the vehicle and it's dug into the ground. It often happens if you say are stopped on a surface of the beach that is quite soft. When you're trying to take off, you'll dig in and your wheels will spin and you won't get the momentum you need. So the important thing there is to make sure you stop in the right spot, but if you don't, then there's measures you can take. Like in this example, reversing back over the same tracks that we had already come across, so they are firmer from us already being on them, and we go across them a couple of times to firm that section up, and then go right back, gain the momentum you need, then create the turn to get off the beach through the softer section. Here's vision of from outside the car, and I needed to get off this beach. It's a bit hard to see, but it's right up in that corner, bottom left-hand corner, the exit I was trying to get off. And you can see I'm gathering speed, and then I'm start to make the turn to get off the beach into the area I wanted to get into, because we're going up the Calcutt Hill. So as you can see, this is quite soft, really soft sand. You can see it all flicking out the side as I'm turning, and I lost a lot of momentum as a result. Now here I made a huge mistake. As I was reversing, instead of reversing back in the direction I came from, I reversed straight back, accidentally turned the wheel too far, and I dug that wheel in as a result, and I couldn't reverse back straight over my own line. So I had to get out. I deflated the tires a little bit further, and then I reversed directly straight on the angle I was on. Instead of trying to straighten it up and go backwards, I just reversed straight back down onto the beach section again, gained momentum, get up to the top, and then did the turn on the second occasion. Now, in this particular example, this is a hill or a dune that we're coming down. Now, when you go down a hill or a dune, you want to go back, you want to go straight down the dune itself in the direction it does. Now, if you find that your car starts to turn like this one does, you're at huge risk of tipping that vehicle. Now, this is a great scenario of a good recovery or a self-recovery of an issue you've turned, or something's happened where you've ended up in this angle. Instead of continuing, you stop your vehicle and then try and turn into the slope. He amends his own error, or for whatever reason ended up in that location, but he's amended it and then continued downhill and sorted out that problem. No worries. Now, there's going to be a lot more content that we cover throughout this series, and we've got a lot of more things and situations to go through, but we'll pretty much finish it up there, because there was a lot to digest throughout here. So I want to say a big thank you again. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. It does help us out. And I'll catch you on the next video. Thank you very much for listening.